Eng Switchyard Midnight Signal Promise on the Railway Pass. The switchyard keeps its own weather. By day it's a map of obligation, timetables, whistles, rules that talk louder than people. By night it becomes a rumor with iron bones, a place where rails hum with stories they didn't agree to carry. I slipped past the chain-link gate with my phone face down in my left pocket, the pocket I use for things that are supposed to make it home, and followed the chalk dust line that old hands mark as if ritual still has jurisdiction. Sodium lamps bleached the gravel. A far-off horn corrected the sky. Back home, Jonah had said, "Can we talk tomorrow?" in the voice that means, "Please stay now." Our couch is more courthouse than furniture. If we sit at opposite ends long enough, it swears us in. We'd been good for years, competent, careful, kind in ways that last longer than roses. But lately our sentences ended like closed doors. I left before we turned affection into exhibits. On the bus my screen lit with a message from, in my contacts, L in the way I label hazards to make them smaller. Control Shack, back of yard, see just talk. I tell people I work with sentences, and it's true. I'm a copy editor for a small city magazine whose circulation dreams bigger than its budget. But the clearer I make other people's paragraphs, the more my own grow teeth. Luca had reappeared 2 months earlier when the magazine sent me to profile the men who keep a city on time. He wore an orange vest, unzipped one too many, and a laugh that sounded like a glass agreeing to be set down gently. He didn't ask for anything. That was how I started bringing him everything. The control shack was the size of a stubborn idea. Inside, a wall of panels glowed green and amber like a patient skyline. Levers wore their grease like metals. A kettle pretended to be domestic on a windowsill no one ever opened. Luca stood with one hip against the desk, sleeves shoved up, collar unpunished. His forearms held the confident geography of a man who knows where a city hides its temperature. "You came," he said, "because men never tire of pretending arrival is a plot twist." "I came to return something," I said. "My signal key, your good sense," he almost smiled. "Your name," I said. "It's been on my mouth too long for its own health." He pulled a paper yard pass from a clipboard, the kind supervisors sign when they want to believe gates can hold feelings. He slid it across the desk with a pencil gone soft and mean. "3 words," he said. "Why are you here?" "3 words is cruel," I said. "That's why they work," he answered, tapping the line marked reason. I wrote proud at breakfast. Under it, smaller like a fuse I wasn't sure I'd dare to light, touch before arguing. He read the graphite as if it had temperature. He didn't touch me. His hand hovered a breath from my lapel, the distance a match keeps during training, and fell away like the camera in the corner had a vote. "Does he know?" Luca asked. He didn't need to weaponize the pronoun. "He knows the apartment is quiet," I said. The yard radio murmured a string of codes like a psalm nobody learned. The kettle clicked off. Luca poured water into 2 stained mugs he pretended were clean. He handed me mine with the steady care of someone who respects tools. "We're clear for 9 minutes," he said, glancing at a timetable. "My luck, never been longer than that." "I don't need long," I lied. Heat arrived before hands do when men are trying to be better than their appetites. He stepped into my weather. "Tell me no," he said, soft as an instruction he hoped I'd fail. I didn't. I met him in the inch that rewrites evenings. His mouth tasted like mint and the idea of citrus. When his hand found the back of my neck, his grip remembered humane limits. My body answered like a courtroom that wants the witness anyway. He made the sound men make when a small country surrenders and calls it diplomacy. I made the one I've learned not to hate when it belongs to him. He didn't rush. Yards reward rhythm, not speed. His mouth found the hinge of my jaw, Mine found the line just below his ear where regret loses vocabulary. His palm slid under my shirt and waited, "Do you swear?" Then moved with attention rather than appetite. He guided my hand down with the steadiness of a man who knows torque by feel. I closed my fingers and he exhaled into my mouth a truth nobody was paid to hear. He reached for me and I let him. We stayed quiet because steel prefers prose. The panels went on believing in their own small sun. "We already cheated," he said when breath remembered its job. "We cheated when we started telling each other the truth before we told it at home." "I know," I said, "and the radios did not object." He folded the yard pass and slid it into my left pocket with ceremonial slowness. His thumb traced my wrist once and chose not to stay. He stepped back the moral inch that passes inspection. "I booked a room," he said, not triumphant. "Weather report, not prophecy. Refundable. We could stand at a window and not touch for 60 seconds to prove ceremony still exists. We could keep the do not disturb honest." "I'm tired of being clever," I said. "Clever's a detour," he said. "Accurate is the main line." We walked the catwalk outside the shack, the rails below crossing like arguments nobody wanted to resolve. He pointed with his chin at a switch lamp that refused to stay green. "Everything here is persuasion," he said. "You ask the metal to honor the plan and promise you won't rush what needs to settle." "You talk like a priest," I said. "Only when I want to be forgiven," he said. When I left, he pressed a novelty magnet shaped like a tiny signal head into my palm, ridiculous and perfect. "For your fridge," he said. "Cold helps letters behave." The crosswalk to the bus stop gave me time. I took it. The apartment offered its square of kitchen light and the fridge's patient hum. Jonah sat on the floor with his back against the door, sleeves pushed to his elbows, one ankle over the other, the posture manuals use when they draw people who are about to fix things. He didn't ask where I'd been. He turned his head toward the space beside him. I sat. "Do you want to be asked?" he said, voice steady, not performing mercy, offering it. "Please," I said, because prompts are the scaffolding of my better self. "Are you lonely?" "Some nights," I said. "Not here. Not when you ask first. Not when the kettle beats the reasons." I took his wrist and set his hand on my forearm the way he does when he needs to make sure I'm not inventing weather. His thumb traced once and believed me. "I feel useful," he said. "I want to be wanted before I'm useful." "Tonight's procedure," I said. "Touch first, argue second, report later." He made tea and I pinned the yard pass beneath the signal magnet so proud at breakfast faced the room. Jonah read the graphite and his mouth did the smaller, braver thing. He took a dry erase marker from the cup by the fridge and wrote beneath the magnet, "Tomorrow, keep the torque." He didn't grin. He nodded like a man assembling a morning from honest screws. We made a rule that isn't noble. When prosecution tries to wear a bathrobe, one of us says signal and the other puts the kettle on while the first puts his hands where history can find them. 5 words when 5 are enough. Stop at the shoulder, not the ditch. Try to want what we promised, and when we don't, write 3 words on small paper and tell the room where we'll fail differently tomorrow. Days do what days do when you're trying to be an amateur human with professional consistency. The pass in my pocket learns the shape of my left hand. Paper learns its carriers. On late trains, I draft messages to no one that begin "I didn't ask" because I thought that counted as kindness and end "May your breakfast go right." I don't send them. The not sending feels like a skill borrowed from switches. Settle, then move. A week later, afternoon tries to be a test. A donor refuses an interview. The magazine wants prose by a deadline that thinks sleep is a hobby. I walk past the yard and buy nothing. I leave a bottle of water on the fence with a note, "For whoever is waiting for a sister." A brakeman glances up and gives me the nod bridges use when they've held and will hold again. On my way home, I slip a blank inspection tag into my pocket and write "turn" toward your name across the clean side. I don't light anything. Jonah and I try honesty the way you try an old jacket, cautious with the shoulders. We draw a calendar of trust: Tuesday therapy, Thursday dinner with friends who know enough to keep their faces ordinary. He asks me to text when I'll be late. I do, sometimes with pictures of rain on the shack's plexiglass like a child proving the weather exists. We fail and we try again. He asks me once in a small voice whether the other man touches my neck the way he does. I tell him the engineering truth. Similar design, different tolerances, no better or worse, only a different kind of exact. Luca texts weather, and I send back a photo of steam. He replies with a video of a turnout sliding home, metal admitting it wants to go where it was told. He doesn't write "I miss you," but the rails say it in Morse. We flirt by logistics. We confess by maintenance. One rain-bruised evening, a freight stalls on the main, and Luca needs a runner to bring a wrench he doesn't trust to strangers. I'm 5 blocks away and too willing. When I reach the stalled cut of cars, he's soaking and swearing. Beautiful the way wreckage can be before anyone assigns blame. We work in a hurry that insults precision, and he stops, breathes, resets, because metal requires patience and so do certain men. After Under the Bridge, he kisses me with a hunger that forgets weather. My back meets cold concrete, his jacket meets my open hands. Somewhere a gull complains we're borrowing its roof. We don't rush. We map mercy with our mouths and attention with our hands. My shirt rides up, his fingers pause on skin. Do you swear? Then continue in deliberate grammar. I palm him through wet denim, and he bites my lip gentle enough that regret can't file paperwork. He reaches for me, and I let him. And we stay mostly quiet because water echoes and names things we don't want recorded. We're bad at quitting, he says against my throat when air remembers its manners. We're good at failing differently, I answer. He laughs into my collarbone, and it feels like a prayer that doesn't insist on being answered. Text me a weather report in the morning, he says, the same as always. Tell me if the kettle beat the reasons. It usually does, I say, when we let it. Jonah meets me at home with the posture of a question he's decided not to weaponize. He sees the damp and the borrowed jacket and does not ask whose. He pours tea and slides a napkin across the table like a treaty draft. He's written 3 words: ask before leaving. I write 3 back: hold me first. We sign with our names like we're legal to ourselves. It should be ridiculous. It is. The magazine runs my railroad piece with a headline that uses the word unsung as if that makes anything noble. The editor loves the paragraph where Luca teaches me why steel argues with itself at certain temperatures. Jonah reads the draft and circles a sentence where I accidentally wrote "we" when I meant "they." He doesn't point it out. He leaves the circle like a lighthouse. One night I show Jonah the pass under the magnet. I tell him why the words "proud at breakfast" matter, how the morning is when I can still choose the harder thing, how I want him to see me choosing it, how shame works better as compost than as currency. He listens. He asks if I want to stay. I tell him I want to, and sometimes wanting to is the start you're allowed. Luca asks me to meet him at a motel near the river that pretends windows are honesty. I go, because I am sometimes a liar with a tender aim. He opens the door in a shirt that makes my resolve into overripe fruit and kisses me like punctuation that refuses to be subordinate. We put our phones screen down on the dresser like men who have read the manual for our own worst behavior. The bed doesn't squeak. The curtains don't judge. We practice what we've perfected: attention, restraint, the willingness to stop at a shoulder instead of a ditch. There's a moment where he pauses, breath catching, hand at my belt. Do you swear? And I say I can't stay the night. He nods, something like respect breaking across his face. We make it count anyway. I leave before checkout and put both hands on the steering wheel like a promise. At home, Jonah is making pancakes like a man who has decided sugar is a form of diplomacy. He flips one onto my plate shaped like a state neither of us has ever visited. Weather report, he asks. The kettle beat the reasons, I say, and mean it more than usual. After breakfast, I take the pass from the fridge and turn it over. I write 3 new words on the back, choose the hard. Jonah watches and doesn't interrupt the ceremony by applauding. In the afternoon, I walk to the yard with the magnet in my pocket. I find Luca by the south switch, eyes tired, hands steady. I press the magnet into his palm. For your locker, I say. Cold helps letters behave. He closes his fist and looks at me like a map that refuses to be folded the same way twice. We can stop, he says. He means I will not make you the worst thing about yourself. I don't know how, I say. I mean I might learn. He nods. We stand there not touching, with trains groaning past like old gods who know better than to judge. In that noise we agree to less. Fewer messages. No motels. If we fail, we'll fail quieter. If we stay, we'll stay braver. It's not heroic. It's the size of a promise 2 men can lift without breaking their backs. Weeks blur. The pass grows soft at the edges. Breakfast earns its adjective. The magazine sends me to cover a street fair and I write too kindly about a vendor with jelly on his tie. Jonah laughs at the sentence and licks jam off my finger and the room approves. Luca sends a photo of a sunrise over the yard, tracks braiding gold. I heart it and don't go. He hearts the heart and leaves it there. One evening the kettle clicks and Jonah says, I don't know if I'm forgiving you or postponing judgment. Maybe both, I say. I can live with both, he answers. He takes my hand across the table and doesn't flinch at the callus from the wrench I shouldn't have borrowed. The switchyard keeps its own weather. Sometimes I walk past the fence and the lamps decide to be kind. I leave a bottle of water on the post with a note, for whoever is waiting for a sister. A dispatcher waves like a man who knows that mercy has shift work. I go home and write 3 words on a clean card and tuck it under the magnet where only the morning will see them. We fail and fail differently and fail in ways that don't require anyone to stand in gravel pretending to know which track will save them. The room does not demand a verdict. The morning remembers its job. And when we say tomorrow out loud, it means only what we let it mean.